Welcome back to you into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next 8 to 10 days. In today's video, we'll be taking us up towards the 8th of August, so well on into the final month of the summer. It looks like we're going to be seeing more activity in the Atlantic, I think, over the next week to 10 days. I was explaining this at the end of the video yesterday, that it does look as though low pressure and westerlies are going to start to try to return from the Atlantic. How much inroads they actually make, I'm not entirely certain, because we're going to keep high pressure close to the south and to the east, so we might actually have a little bit of a battle taking place really in terms of the atmospheric setup between low pressure sort of in the Atlantic trying to push in, but high pressure not really relenting down to the south and the southeast all that much. And it's just going to be a case of how much inroads those weather systems make as to whether we see the rain getting down in towards the south and the southeast, but potentially it stays quite dry, I think, at times down to the south and the southeast. I'll talk about all the charts in a moment. Before I get on with that, though, just to say about the advertising. There's video ads on my pages at gasweathers.com. If you could hit play on video ads, you'll be helping to support gasweathers.com. Thanks very much for doing that. So we're going to start off with the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts, as we always do. These are the anomalies for 8 to 10 days time, say, taking us to around the 8th of August. We've got the E7WF here on the left, the GFS is over on the right. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is where we've got weather taking place in the atmosphere. We've got high pressure and low pressure being moved around by the jet stream, which is running above, and that essentially is what weather is, the movement of air via the jet stream. The red colours and orange colours are extrapolating to above average heights, above average temperature actually, 80,000 feet, that's high pressure. The blue colours extrapolating to below average temperatures at 18,000 feet, which obviously is low pressure. So both the ECM and the GFS are agreeing that we've got this area of low pressure, below average height, sitting to the west and to the northwest of the country. We're bringing in the jet stream a little bit around that area of low pressure as well. So the jet stream is sort of running into particularly the northwest of the country. But the big complication with this is got this large ridge of blocking area of high pressure up to the east and northeast. It's going to be bringing an incredible heat wave to many northern and eastern parts of Europe over the next week to 10 days. You will be hearing a lot about the heat in western parts of Russia, into northeastern Europe, into Scandinavia through the next few days. There'll be a lot about it on the news, because it's going to be really quite intense, the heat. Perhaps some places getting up towards 100 Fahrenheit under that ridge of high pressure. And that high pressure is sort of blocking this low pressure coming in a little bit. So we're on the periphery of the high pressure. We won't be seeing the sort of intense heat that they're getting up to the northeast Europe. Don't worry about that. But it's going to be enough, I think, to hold this trough at bay somewhat. And you can see that particularly it's the north and the northwest that's at risk of getting the unsettled weather, I think, from this area of low pressure, with the south and the southeast always prone, being close to that ridge, to getting some dry conditions. Nevertheless, I think at times we will bring some weather systems through across the country. So I think even in the southeast we will get some rain at times, could be particularly around the weekend, but I'm not sure it's going to be desperately unsettled. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We'll deal with the temperature first of all, and the thick red line here, not that easy to make out today. There's a thick red line which is the 30-year temperature average, and most members of the ensemble are clustering around the red line actually for the next week or so. So we're going to be near normal in terms of the upper air temperatures. Of course, as I've explained in the videos before, these don't tell you everything about the temperatures down on the surface, because the sun is very, very strong still, although it is starting to get a little bit weaker now as we go into August, but it's still a very strong sun, so it offsets the upper air temperatures a little bit. So when you've got upper air temperatures around average like that, actually down on the surface it tends to be a little bit warmer than average. In winter it's the converse. If the temperature anomalies are around average in winter, because the sun is very weak, very often the temperatures will come out a little bit under average, depending on the scenario, of course. But as I say, the upper air temperatures aren't telling us everything we need to know. I think generally will be a little bit above average during this period. Nevertheless, it's going to be cooler than it has been through most of July. As we go up to the second week period, we start to get a lot of scatter, and there are some members of the ensemble then, as we're going up towards the middle of August. This is the 13th of August down here. As we're going up towards the middle of August, there are some members that start to turn quite hot again, but that's some some way off, and I don't want to deal with that in today's video too much. The precipitation ensembles are interesting because as we're going through the coming week, actually there's not that many rainfall spikes. This is the 1st of August just here, which I think is Thursday. So going into the weekend, we do bring some rainfall spikes through across the country. There will be some rain getting down into the south and the southeast, but to be honest, it's not that wet really down to the southeast around London for the weekend. And going on into next week, we have got some rainfall spikes there, but you certainly wouldn't look at that and say it's a particularly wet period coming up. Now, it's a little bit different for Manchester. This is the ensemble for Manchester. So that ensemble you just looking at was for London, but notice how many more precipitation spikes there is for Manchester, just telling us that to the north and the west we're likely to have a much wetter spell coming up from the weekend and into next week. But again, going back to that ensemble for London, how much of that actually makes its way down into the southeast is open to question, and the reason for that is that ridge of high pressure to the east and to the southeast of the country. The temperature anomalies for the next week, this is taking us from the 29th to the 6th of August, showing that we're going, 29th of July to the 6th of August I should say, tell us that we're going to be a little bit above average, as I was explaining, despite the fact that the temperature ensembles for the upper atmosphere are around average. Down on the surface, we're probably going to be a little bit warmer than average. Actually, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's near normal. But for England and Wales, yeah, a little bit above average down there. But not as hot as it has been through much of July. The temperature, the rainfall anomaly, shows that we're going to have a bit of a north-south split. The England and Wales here down in the south getting slightly drier than average rainfall, whereas in the north we're a little bit wetter than average. Again, just telling us we've got that northwest to south-southeast split in terms of how much rainfall is coming down across the country. Just throw this in. This is the temperature anomaly for the United States. They've had a very cold July. It looks like it's going to go on into August as well in much of central and eastern areas of the states, anyway, the populated areas. Very cool summer over there. Not sure how cold the year is turning out to be for the central and eastern part of the states, but it must be a very cold year because they had a severely cold winter, incredible depth of cold in the winter through many central and eastern parts of the states, having a very cool summer, so it must be turning out to be a very, very chilly year indeed over in the eastern and central part of America. So let's just have a look at the GFS and ECM generic charts before I go. This is the situation as we go through into Saturday, 2nd of August. On Saturday we've got low pressure really across the country. It will be unsettled, particularly in the north and the west, but I think we will bring some rain over the weekend, even down into the south and southeast. And some of that could be quite heavy, even in the south. I think we could get some quite persistent rain at times from Friday in towards the weekend. Go through into Sunday and then on into Monday, start of next week. Well, look at this. We've got the low pressure out to the northwest and the high pressure bridging through the south, going up to that big blocking feature that's bringing the heat wave to the northeast of Europe. So that's just showing you the idea that I was trying to get across in the 500mm high anomaly chart. The low pressures out to the northwest, the high pressures to the south southeast. There's a proper battle going on there between which pressure belt is going to get the ascendancy. And as we go through into the middle of next week, that low pressure tries to break down the ridge actually, so a weather system will probably spread across the country on Tuesday, although once it gets southeast it will probably be quite weak. And then we're sort of in this in between type scenario for the middle of next week, with low pressure up to the north, a ridge trying to come in from the south, so still sort of this battle going on between high pressure to the south and the east and low pressure to the north, the northwest. And as we go through to the latter stages of next week, we start to build this ridge up from the southwest across England and Wales. This low pressure beginning to stall out the northwest, but how long that lasts I'm not sure, because again as we go through to Friday, the low pressure is trying to flatten off the ridge again. So you just get that idea that over the next 8 to 10 days time it's a real battle between the low pressure in the Atlantic, the high pressure to the south and to the southeast and the east of the country. Here's the low pressure on the ECMWF over the country for Saturday. Will be a more unsettled weekend. As we move through into at the start of next week, again we've got a battle going on between the south and the southeast, where we've got the ridge of high pressure and the low pressure out to the west of the country. That'll be spreading weather systems through the country, but as they get down into the south southeast, run into that ridge, they're probably going to be be relatively weak. As we get through towards the latter stages of next week, there's high pressure beginning to build back in from the Azores again. We've still got this blocking feature producing incredible heat probably over the northeast of Europe. It's a very messy picture with low pressure again trying to come in off the Atlantic. And as we go through to day 10, Friday the 8th of August, well, the battles goes on. Really got the low pressure out to the northwest, the high pressure to the east, perhaps pulling up some hot temperatures out of France by that stage. As I say, on the ensembles there was a bad idea through the second week of August that the temperatures could start to pick up a bit, particularly down in the southeast. We'll have to keep an eye on that, because with this scenario, the low pressure to the west, the high pressure to the east, we're not far from pulling heat back in from the south and southeast. So I think we are going to be looking at more mobility in the Atlantic, most definitely, as we're starting August. The westerlies are going to be trying to come in, but this ridge to the east and to the southeast is going to take a lot of breaking down. And quite where we go as we go through to the middle of August, it is quite uncertain, but I wouldn't be at all surprised on the charts we've seen this morning that we may well get another plume at some point through the second week of August, may bring some heat back up, and possibly turn it very thundery as well as those areas of low pressure, which are more active in the Atlantic than they were in July. So they tried to come in, we could spark off some very interesting conditions indeed. So all in all, it's a very interesting outlook. More mobility in the Atlantic, but the block sitting to the east is going to be a big complication. That's it for now. It's a 5-day forecast tomorrow. It will be a more unsettled weekend, so what we'll be dealing with that in the 5-day forecast tomorrow, come back to that. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.